Right. I think we're best just to get going then, guys. And hello to everybody who's joining. Super quick introduction from my side. I am Callum, one of the co-founders at Calyptus. Calyptus is Web3's gamified hiring platform. We have about 50,000 users and we're experiencing some incredible growth at the moment, much of which is down to our recent points launch. So please do check that out. Today, very pleased to be joined by Michele and Jade from Superfluid. I'll let them give introductions to themselves in just a moment, but this event marks the first in our series of panels with Talent Titans winners. For those not familiar with that, Talent Titans is a first of its kind list of the top 100 Web3 employers that we launched just last week. I'm sure one of the team will post that in the chat for you to check out. And today we're going to be discussing how Web3 platforms like Superfluid are disrupting how companies hire, manage, and pay talent without traditional intermediaries. I'm going to throw over to Michele just to give a quick intro, and then over to you, Jade, after that.
Thanks, Callum. Yeah, I'm Mike, excited to be here. I'm co-founder and COO at Superfluid. My background is in tech ventures and operations, product, growth, and marketing. And I've been covering a lot of hats over different startups in my career. What we do at Superfluid is we allow recurring payments to happen on a stream of tokens on chain, which basically enables a lot of different use cases within DeFi, like recurring, DEXs, or even subscriptions or many-to-one distributions like, grants and payroll. So very excited to dive a lot more into the Web3 way of hiring talent and managing talent across different nationalities and jurisdictions. And yeah, here today we have also Jade. So maybe you can say also a couple of words about yourself.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks. Again, Callum, thanks for having us. Thanks for including us in the Talent Titans list and being the first in the series as well. So thanks so much for that. So I'm Jade. I am the executive assistant at Superfluid, which is probably a little bit deceiving in terms of some of the things that I do at Superfluid. So I do a lot of the people's operations, so helping with recruitment, a lot of people initiatives, contracts, help building culture, all those various things. My background is mainly in sort of support, so lots of sort of PA, executive assistant roles in various different tech companies. I've been with the company for about 3.5 years now, so sort of right from the beginning. So, I've had my hand in lots of different areas, but yeah, effectively managing a lot of the people elements at the moment. So thanks again, Callum, for having us. And yeah, as Mike said, happy to start the discussion.
Cool. Thank you very much, guys. I think to start then, would love to talk a little bit more about how you at Superfluid think about and use intermediaries in finding high quality profiles and distinguishing them from the many opportunistic applications that you must get. And I suppose to add on to that, have you utilized your community or network to make hires at Superfluid?
Maybe I'll break the ice on this one, Jade.
Yeah.
So Colin, we have seen both, to be honest. So Web3, as you know, has a lot of open source, decentralized values where there is always some sort of international community driving growth of the project behind the scenes, beside maybe the core team that are the people that really, are 120% into it. One of the peculiarities of the industry, I would say, is that there is quite a lot of people normally that signal interest to the core team by actually starting to work on the protocol or on the project on their own. And they normally do that via contributions to the source code, contributions on the community side with marketing. They sometimes become natural ambassadors of the brand locally in their community, or simply they sympathize with one of the founders, one of the core team members, and they just want to get going, working with the protocol. So in that sense, it does disrupt the traditional way that large companies normally operate. But if you think about some of the outstanding candidate that got hired by large brands like Airbnb, for example, this also exists in Web 2. There are some candidates that shoot pretty amazing reports on Twitter directly to the founders of these large companies in Web 2. I think one of the country managers for Airbnb got hired because he was just listing the Airbnbs in the country on his own, right? So this proactive attitude is just emphasized in crypto, and is easier to get recognized by the small teams that normally operate these protocols. So that is definitely disintermediating, the usual recruitment process to some degree. But what I can say is that we also had a lot of support by recruitment agencies and different players in the industry that made it their job to identify high quality candidates that then could really bring the project forward because of their extensive skill set and experience. So, while we want to think this is truly disintermediating the intermediaries, I would say it's only partially doing so. And a lot of the intermediaries are actually adding value because they can specialize on what their bread and butter really is. And so, when you think about recruitment and when you think about even just payroll, those two items are not necessarily the strength of a nascent startup, which is normally focused on the product or the tech. And therefore, it's kind of easier to outsource that to the experts until a community is then formed and then the company scales. And then it maybe makes sense to bring that internally with your own recruitment division or HR division, and or your, even admin payroll or even legal counsel in-house, where you don't basically outsource any of that. I don't know if Jade has anything to add to that, but that's my view.
And yeah, well, just to add, recruitment can be really hard. Like, we all experience that, and we have tried so many different methods in terms of, we advertise on our own website. We have referrals within the company. When we go to conferences and events, we obviously try and speak to people and see if we can find candidates that way. But when we do use some of those sort of traditional methods, for instance, when we have a job, on our website, we can get so many candidates that come through. You're talking hundreds of applications, but it not only takes so much time for us to try and go through those applications to try and find those sort of superstar candidates, but also, we might have people that don't have the sort of right skills for this particular role. So it can be such a long process, which is why, as Mike said, we do often look to outsource to see if we can sort of utilize intermediary sort of skills or even their network, and obviously kind of save ourselves time in that aspect as well.
For sure. Yeah, I think the beauty of Web3 is the kind of simplicity of particularly engineers being able to contribute to open source protocols very quickly and easily and prove their worth before ever having to have an interview or speak to anyone on the team. It was cool to hear actually, Michele, about the Airbnb example that you gave. You kind of forget that that's possible outside of this industry, but it makes it easier for you to stand out, right? And it's great to hear that you've been able to lean on your community, a network, to be able to grow the team. But for sure, intermediaries, whether we like it or not, they're going to be involved, particularly for smaller companies that perhaps don't have that community, or for really niche roles, which there are a lot of, smart contract engineers and roles like that. They are very, very challenging to fill, and as you rightly said, there's experts in the space that can support on that. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, go on.
No, maybe a comment on that, because maybe this is an insight that not everyone gets to see hands-on, is that I think that the profiles that came through our community are slightly different from those that we've been sourcing through recruitment agencies or other channels. And I think that the major difference is that maybe those that come from different sources could have deeper skills or more experience, or have been there and done that in different companies, and they were hired specifically because they could bring that know-how over to our company. But I have to say that those that came from the community tend to be a lot more engaged, a lot hungrier, a lot more proactive, and a lot more aligned to the very values and culture of the company. So, that is a key differentiator, and I think is something
For sure.
to keep in mind when, like, if you're hiring a profile that, I don't know, if you want to hire someone who is front and center publicly talking about your company, it might well be that having someone who is genuinely deeply interested in having the project succeed and comes from the community because he or she or then they decided to be really hands-on in helping it proactively, it does make a massive difference in the deliverables and the output that person brings to the company later on.
I think that's a great point. And we haven't touched on referrals. Referrals from people inside the company, they're kind of intermediaries, but we've certainly found that the best employees that we've hired, more often than not, come from referrals, and that's because they've been sold the dream of the business well before they've actually joined it. They've got excited, and once they joined, they are huge proponents, and they're getting stuck in and being proactive, which it makes all the difference in a small and growing business. I think I'm right in saying that you guys are globally distributed with a focus on Europe. You're definitely remote first, right? I suppose interested in exploring some of the challenges that you've faced dealing with a globally distributed team.
Yeah, sure. So obviously, I think the first thing to mention is the fact that a lot of people are actually looking for remote working, and so people want to have that sort of flexibility. So, we do often sell it as a benefit. So many people are sort of moving away from traditional hybrid roles and wanting to have more flexibility. So it is something that actually is a benefit, and it is something that we do, position it that way. But as you mentioned, it does offer a lot of challenges as well. So, first of all, in terms of like geography, making sure people are on similar time zones can be quite difficult, especially if you're trying to find the skills. They might be, based in various different locations. I think in terms of building team spirit, it can sometimes be a little bit difficult because you're removing that element of, people being in the office physically, removing conversations, water cooler conversations where people talk about daily life. When you're on a Zoom call, you don't necessarily kind of have those open discussions as well. I think also sometimes people can feel perhaps a little bit detached from the business. So I guess the main thing here is obviously those challenges, we are aware of those, but it's kind of, putting the right structures in place from day one to be able to kind of manage those. So, what can we do to bring people together in terms of, communication? So, have collaborative tools. What can we do to, kind of bring people together in terms of, feeling like they're part of the team? We can do off-sites, we can do physical meetups, we can bring everyone to a conference so they can see each other in real life. And I think also it's partly about setting expectations from the beginning. So right at the beginning of the recruitment process, when we are having interviews and screens, setting the expectations of what a remote team looks like, how we, work together, how we interact, making sure that people have that experience previously or are looking for that in their next role. So yeah, there obviously are challenges, but as I said, it is a benefit as well. And it's about kind of coming up with the right sort of strategies and structures to be able to manage those challenges as well. Mike, I don't know whether you've got anything additional to add to that.
Yeah, well said. I think is definitely challenging, but it's also exciting to be able to be accessible to the whole world to some degree. What I would say in terms of insights we got is that it's kind of definitely easier to start thinking in terms of hubs where you have groups of people that belong to the same location or city, because that way nobody is truly isolated and feels disconnected to the team from a physical point of view. And it doesn't need to be business unit or subject oriented. It could be that you have different roles in the same city, so they don't necessarily work with each other on a daily basis, but at least they have the ability to meet over coffee and discuss a hard project or a challenge that maybe is even cross team. Then hiring lone wolves that maybe just work out of their house somewhere remote, that they don't really have a chance to interact with the people, and therefore the entire exposure to the company culture they have is on Zoom call and Slack messages or digital means, and maybe some offsites a few times a year. But that is really the key challenge, is probably around building culture. um, because yeah, it's like you don't get to see the private life of people nearly as much as if you were in the same office, where someone comes in with I don't know, some stretch muscle because they play some sport, and you have a conversation about that, right? While you probably try to hide it on Zoom call because you don't want others to like feel worried for you or something. Or you don't see on Zoom calls the very outfit of the person or how they behave or the overall attitude and presence in the room. And I think another challenge really is to um, bring a project beyond the closing line in a fast manner, which in our office would probably look like something like lock everyone in a room for 6 hours during the day and just try to grind it through and try to get it out of the way and deliver the deadline or the milestone. While online, it's really hard to create some sort of war room and try to get it through in a short term. Also because collaboration is a little bit harder than everyone sits on the whiteboard and tries to figure it out. And I guess the other element is that you lose a little bit of serendipity, where solutions might arise organically from team members in the same office. On the flip side, you have the ability to cover all the time zones. Maybe people are slightly a bit more relaxed because they have the ability to combine some of their important life events with work. Makes it a lot more flexible. You can enjoy lunch in your own house. You can enjoy, the ability to run the washing machine while in between calls, where, if you have to do it on the office, it's a bit harder. But I don't know which model really is the best for both the company and the people. I think the pandemic brought this to basically everyone in the world for a while. Um, I think crypto has a lot of digital nomads involved in the industry that really truly enjoy the flexibility of being able to work from a remote island somewhere in Southeast Asia and be as skilled as if they were locked in an office in New York, because they have the background, they have the experience. It's just that when they log off, instead of finding themselves in a concrete jungle, they can go surfing on the beach, right? And so I don't know. It's like it's probably this kind of movement towards a more human life versus being sitting in a cubicle like in the 80s to some degree.
For sure. Yeah, I think remote work has its big benefits, but there's nothing like getting in the office with your team. We just had 3 people start today, and I'm always surprised at how tall people are when they come into the office. There's like small things that suddenly you're like looking up and like, whoa, you're massive. You never realize that on a Zoom. But agreed, culture building in this new kind of way of working is really difficult. You mentioned that you kind of often go to conferences, you run offsites and things like that. Do you run kind of at those offsites, for example? Are you primarily working, or are you spending the majority of that time, doing social activities and kind of getting to know each other more so?
Yeah, Jade is our chief offsite officer, so I'll let her give you the one-on-one on how we do those.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
a great title.
So it is, yeah, obviously the officer of many different things. So yeah, that's obviously one of them as well. So it's a combination of both, really. So, I think it is important to, whilst you are all together, to sit down, do some strategy, do some, hacking together. So, we do have a little bit of a structure to have those sort of more formal sessions, but then we love to go out and do like an activity together. So previously we've done like hiking in the Dolomites for the day. We've done like a boat trip around Greece. We've done various different things. And also we spend, the majority of the evening, having a drink together, playing some games, playing some sports. A lot of our team are, love like activities. So maybe it'll be like ping pong and things like that. So it definitely gives people just the opportunity, as Mike mentioned, which you sort of miss in the remote environment, where people can just hang out, understand people's like hobbies, passions, things about family, all those type of things that you do kind of miss. So that's why we do think it's important, and we do try and do those and get everybody involved. And, the full team are always there wanting to go and really enjoy it. So yeah, it is a combination of both, but I think that sort of downtime, that personal time together is, hugely valuable, even against the sort of strategy side as well. So yeah, that's kind of what the sessions look like.
Your offsites sound like great fun.
They certainly are. There's lots of stories
Join
from
next year.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Cool.
get to see the personality of team members that is kind of hard to see across the screen. But I think a successful offsite ultimately is mostly focused on human connection. Even a reality check on, the founders are not gods. Like, you smash them at ping pong and you destroy them, at different sports. And so it's a bit of a reality check of how flat the company really is and how much everyone is contributing. And you can connect that and pair that with pretty deep strategic workshops where you really do involve everyone in the company, even the latest intern that joined yesterday, in drafting strategy for the next year, right? And so, yes, it's fun, but also it's highly strategic. It is not a vacation, right? And so everyone gets hands-on into shaping the potential and the future of the company, which is not something you do every day. So it really feels in a way good, because it's not your day-to-day job that you're used to do from home. And also you can literally have fun and wind down and relax with the people that are striving to make the company successful. So, it strips away the roles. Everyone is grinding in the same room. It feels a lot more like a sport team, if you will, rather than, a company. And that, I think, is quite unique to some of these decentralized teams. And I think that the only challenge I would add there is scale. As you scale to 50, 60, 100 people, these offsites become harder and harder to pull off in a high quality fashion. But that said, everyone should give it a try and see if it really benefits the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of our larger clients run offsites for teams or groups of teams as opposed to the entire company now, because, as you said, it's kind of not feasible to get hundreds of people together in one place. Awesome. That was really interesting. Thank you. I want to move the conversation a little bit more kind of Superfluid focused. You guys are very much in the real-time payment space, and I'm keen to get your thoughts on how real-time payments are changing the way that companies compensate their workforce. What benefits do you think that real-time payments offer in terms of flexibility and worker satisfaction, things like that?
Yeah. So let me be a little bit opinionated here on how this has been going on for way too long when it comes to payroll or just getting a compensation. So like I feel like when you work for a company for an entire month or 2 weeks at times, and then you get paid at the end of that period, you're basically providing an interest-free loan to the company, because I'm working on Monday, the 1st of the month, and then I'm going to have to wait for payday to get the money for that time I spent. And, if I'm a freelancer, it's even worse, because, in a contractor position, the company might simply not pay me at all. So what we believe is the future of work is that you get paid as you provide the value and not after you do. So what we have built is an atomic swap of value for money, where effectively you get paid in a real-time stream, second by second, with tokens hitting your wallet. So for example, you get 10 stable coins straight into your wallet every minute, and you see that ticking up in real time, and they are not virtual, they are actually in your wallet and spendable as you receive them. So much so that you can redirect that incoming stream to other team members, to your children, to your rent, to your DeFi app strategy, where you dollar cost average into Bitcoin with the stables you receive. And that is fully automated, on-chain, and gasless, right? So the reason we see this protocol being extremely kind of fundamental for the future we envision is that it's about time that we do create fair terms for the workers and not just for the employers. And sometimes the employers are holding all that capital liquid in a bank account that doesn't really generate a lot of interest. And so it's just there waiting to be given to the workforce. And in that case, it's just wasted potential, because the workforce could use that capital to invest and generate wealth for themselves, or make it valuable for other companies to produce value. So yeah, effectively what we have done is creating a protocol that is open source, is permissionless, and is fully decentralized on chain, where we swap, we stream tokens second by second from a wallet to another. And we can do that in real time, one to many and many to one, meaning we can use it for rewards as well. So you can see a company like Optimism rewarding hundreds of projects in the industry with a real-time stream that hits their wallet over 100 days, let's say, where not only you create an ongoing engagement with the recipients, but also you provide them an ability to have full control of their finances, on when they're receiving and how they are forwarding that cash flow into what is productive for them. So yeah, that's what we do. We started with payroll back in 2022. And now we have expanded across grants distributions, Airstreams that are basically airdrops down in streams, and the subscriptions, and a lot of other use cases that require any sort of recurring value transfer. It's exciting to see the community pick up this technology for different use cases, because, well, this is probably not part of this conversation around workforce, but it's built as a developer platform. So, Web3 developers and also Web2 developers can leverage the technology to build any sort of applications on top of the protocol absolutely for free. So, we have seen over 800 projects built on Superfluid protocol so far. And some of them were absolutely exciting because we couldn't think of them, and they just came from our community. So that was always refreshing to see as a founder.
Absolutely. That's amazing. People using your protocol that you never even thought about before. Use cases coming out of nowhere. And to be honest, when you explain it like that, it feels really obvious that real-time payments in that respect will be the future. So much can be changed by crypto in general. It sounds really exciting. Shifu asking, are there any hurdles with this method of paying salaries? Michele, Jade, you're the experts.
Yeah, sure. It's very novel, right? So as such, it doesn't fit into a lot of boxes because people expect this to come in a transaction. So if you have some ongoing outflow or inflow into your accounts, even just accounting changes, you don't you don't say, oh, I received 100 yesterday. You basically say, I am receiving some amount per second. So accounting changes, tax reporting changes, some payment process changes, but this friction is minor compared to the gains you get. So for example, if you think about payroll and paying a large workforce, currently you have people that spend their days or time just processing payments that go and hit the different accounts of the workforce every month or every 2 weeks in the US, for example. And that requires the action to take effect just to keep the status quo. Then there is all the people that maybe join the company or leave the company that is a delta to the status quo that these people need to action as well. If you set up streams to everybody, that fully automates the day-to-day, and you don't have to do recurring payments anymore. All you need to do is to action the differences compared to the status quo, right? So that is a massive gain that normally outweighs all the hurdles that you find.
And I was just exactly going to say that, Mike. As someone that has experience from both sides, I manage payments that are traditional fiat payments through traditional sort of payroll companies, but then I also have had a hand in managing setting up the streams. And every month for traditional fiat payroll, you're having to submit reports, approvals, make the payments themselves every single month. Whereas, in comparison, when you are using streams, you can just set up the stream right at the beginning and it will just continually run until, two things, either the person perhaps gets an increase or you need to change your flow rate or something like that, or you stop the stream because it's the end of the contract or the payment needs to finish. So, one is very self-sufficient, autonomous, you can kind of leave it and it takes care of itself, frees up a lot of time, admin, all those type of things. And the other one is very manual. So yeah, that's kind of, I have that first-hand experience actually doing that, so I know how painful it can be. So yeah, that just kind of, is a, in addition to kind of what Mike has just said there. So yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely empathise there. Banks ask for so much information all the time, and you seem to have to provide it more and more and more on all sorts of different things. It feels incredibly frustrating getting to payroll and answering the same questions over and over again. So really cool to hear about that. And I guess a nicely into the next question is kind of, how do you see the role of traditional recruitment and payroll services evolving as companies like yours continue to provide these alternative solutions?
Yeah, maybe it sounds counterintuitive, but recruitment companies and payroll companies play an existential role to some degree in the industry, because, as I said before, the company should focus on what they are, what their mission requires, and that's not necessarily like operations or admin or support services that just make the machine run. And so there will be a role for payroll companies that outsource all that work, and so it might as well that recruitment is going to change slightly, especially with AI and tools that can automate a lot of the manual work that recruiters are doing today. Even with simple questions like, scroll this insane database called LinkedIn and give me like the right match for this profile with AI screening against soft skills by searching the social media profiles of these people and how they behave online, for example, right? So probably AI will change how recruitment works to some degree. And for payroll, any company that doesn't have a massive scale would probably just outsource some of the work, which is not necessarily just the payment, is actually more the compliance and all the additional items that payroll entails, like tax reporting, tax withholding, ensuring compliance with local jurisdictions, issuing pay slips to different employees, etc. That kind of needs to be there independently from the way that the payment is processed. So all of those still need to be there, and someone needs to do them. So that's kind of where I see that. However, it might as well happen that a lot of these processes will be streamlined. And so if the effort decreases substantially, it might as well be that internally the team could manage it themselves in an increasing portion over time. So, the trend could be thinning down the type of services that are required to run effectively the company and keep the team happy. But because it's human based, is a very slow machine to evolve. So we'll probably see a lot of inertia in it.
Yeah, completely agree. On both counts, I think what we're seeing at Calyptus is AI is already impacting recruitment in a lot of ways. We use it more and more pretty much every day to help our partners source more effectively inside our platform, but also for our internal team to find better and better people across the likes of LinkedIn and GitHub and other social platforms. So yeah, it's an exciting time for sure, and AI is definitely changing things. And I think next year we also have plans to launch a payroll product, very likely with the help of Superfluid or your protocol. Really, just trying to solve this payments problem that you're talking about. There's 1 billion distributed workers now in the world, and if we can use things like stablecoins to effectively pay these people by the second, it's a huge unlock. So really, really exciting. I think, unless Jade or Mike, you have anything else to add there?
I was just going to add as well, I guess the changes that might happen will probably also be impacted by the different ways that we are actually engaging with people. People perhaps are moving away from more of traditional employment to perhaps shorter contract work because people are working remotely. They want more flexibility. And when you are using like real-time finance, there is that flexibility there. So I think those sorts of changes as well probably will shift in the way that traditional recruitment and payroll will happen as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and also, Colin, I was curious to hear your thoughts, because you might have seen a lot of different companies that are trying to hire in the space, and if you can share any insights you have in this trend where we are seeing everyone trying to go a bit more remote and decentralized. What did you see? Any insights you feel like you could share with us?
Well, first insight is, I think about 90% of roles that go live in this space are remote, a tiny percentage being hybrid, and even smaller on-site. So for sure, everyone's kind of understanding and appreciating the benefits of tapping into a global talent pool as opposed to a very local talent pool. I think other insights to share are particularly, I suppose, in this space, things like salaries. We often see much higher salaries, and that's typically, I think, because of the niche skill sets that are required for building relationships and for working with deep technology that is very, very complex. I don't know whether to throw it back at you, you see that at Superfluid. Do you notice from your time working in traditional technology to your time now that you're needing to look harder and pay more for great talent?
Definitely, we need to look harder. And I think that this is part of the DNA of running an open project rather than a closed, siloed corporation. So in a closed corporation, if you're an engineer and you're in charge of keeping the servers on and DevOps, for example, you basically never talk to the customer and you only talk to some internal teams. If you're working at Superfluid, you probably are on Discord, you probably are exposed to the entire community. Anyone can tag your name on our public Discord channels and probably ask for help in maybe setting up a project, or you just have your personal presence on Farcaster, on Twitter. You have pull requests coming to your GitHub repos. Like, you are forced to have a good interpersonal relationship skills, right? So that's already an additional skill that we didn't see necessarily in the previous paradigm. And that's why it's kind of harder to find people that tick a lot of boxes that make them a great contributor to a crypto project. So it's not you don't only need to be a great engineer. Now you suddenly need to talk to a community. You might need to have the ability to sell a little bit the company, because you want to promote it while you're showcasing the skills you have on a engineering, technical excellence point of view. And at the same time, you might need to be aware about the common issues that first-time users of the platform or the protocol have, and be able to quickly route them to the right people to resolve them. So now you are asked to also collaborate cross-team in autonomy. So that already means you need to have interpersonal skills. You need to have good technical skills. You also need to have agency. You probably need to be slightly proactive, and you need to have had the experience of this work dynamics before. Otherwise, it's going to take you 3-6 months to just ramp up the speed. And now we are filtering down such a narrow niche of people that tick these boxes that obviously it's harder to identify them. And if you do find them, probably they deserve a better compensation than those that don't have those skills, right? So that's kind of what I've seen so far. And it spans across all roles, right? Simply because, I don't know, you have done, say, marketing in a Web2 agency or in a Web2 environment, it doesn't mean that you know the right channels in the Web3 space for a campaign that you would have run on, I don't know, Instagram on the Web2 world, right? You need to also start munching on that ethos, values, beliefs, understanding which groups follow which projects for which reasons. You don't want to tap the wrong message to the wrong audience. And then you need to learn a lot of these intangibles that are not necessarily written in any playbook you can find online, and you can mostly experience just by doing the work. So definitely there is a much more limited talent pool that have been there and have done that you can bring on board and have potentially operating in a very productive fashion from day one. So I think that the trade-off there is either find this very limited talent and reward them properly, or you need to just onboard someone who has not been there and done that, but then you need to allow them to grow into the role and learn how the industry behaves, and hopefully support them, because this is something that probably is not done enough in the crypto world. Is like everyone wants everyone to hit the road running, but there is also a lot of hand-holding and support that needs to be provided by whoever is in leadership to make this new hire work into that industry and learn the intangibles and the dynamics and the skills that needed. And since everyone's running at 1,000 miles an hour, we don't see that often in the industry.
I think you did a brilliant job there of explaining just how tough it is hiring in this industry, and it's definitely a problem that we are trying to solve through things like verifications, allowing candidates who come to our platform who are looking for work to bring references on chain to their Calyptus profile and to their on-chain CV, to take tech assessments in Python or Solidity or any language, to do tests on like whatever agile methodologies, to prove these skills up front and make it easier for people like you guys to come to one place and to have some confidence that yes, they can actually do the things that they say they can on their CV. But yeah, that was a great explanation of how tough hiring in this industry is. And I agree, a lot of the time, these people deserve more money for their skills.
But you also mentioned salaries there as well. I think it's so difficult because salaries are inflated in some companies. So there's quite a disparity between, you know, all these Web3 companies. But also when you are hiring remotely across various different locations, you know, somebody in New York or London even can be asking for a really high salary compared to somebody else in perhaps, you know, a different part of Europe. And they're perhaps, you know, more skilled than people that are based in different locations. So it's actually really hard as well for us to try and recruit across various different locations, understanding the people's skills and what salary is relevant and all those type of challenges which you face with sort of this new remote working environment.
100%. We just released a salary report a week or two ago. Hopefully that can be shared in the chat somewhere. That really, it becomes very obvious, particularly the geographical divide between the US and really the rest of the world. There's just a huge difference in the salaries that are paid, and when you are hiring globally, it kind of prices you out possibly of the US if you want to pay what you might consider a more reasonable salary.
Yeah, there's also one more comment I want to make here, which is when you see a very, very high salary that is like too good to be true, or you know, at the very top end of the market, it might as well be that the companies are really trying to hire fast and they offer staggering amounts. And then at the first bear market, half of the workforce is gone, right? So it might be great. It also might be unsustainable for the business at the same time. And so we have seen this over and over in the few cycles of the market where some large companies or you know, very well-known protocols offer very, very sexy packages, and then they are forced to let a lot of the team go because the bear market conditions cannot afford those compensation packages anymore. So I think that you'll see two worlds here in terms of salaries and compensation. One world that has these cycles and has very appealing salaries, and the other world where the salaries are much more reasonable, but then the team is much more stable. And so it depends, you know, if you are a poker player or if you want to be a little bit more on the safe side. But you know, every company turns out to be a marathon. So we are not very excited to see, you know, this kind of massive cycles of hires and churn. It would be probably easier for that long-term play to keep the strong team together and keep adding, you know, pillars to the team as time goes by.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you, Michele. I think I've seen some questions come through in the chat. Perhaps we could get one or two up on the screen. Shifu again. Thanks, Shifu, for all your questions. How receptive, guys, are your employees when you're running offsites? Do you manage to get everybody at Superfluid in one place, or are you often missing a few people?
I'd say usually everyone from the team, maybe one person can't come because of perhaps like childcare commitments or, you know, a holiday that was already pre-booked or something like that. But in general, usually almost the full team are there because everybody actually wants to attend. So yeah, everyone's receptive. Everyone's always asking us when the next one's going to be and where we're going to go. And, you know, we make a bit of a big deal of sort of like holding off on the announcement of the location and kind of build up a little bit of a buzz about it. So everyone gets really excited. Some people even extend the trip to stay in perhaps a location that we are. They maybe all stay together, you know, go out and, you know, do things after the offsite. So yeah, I think everyone really enjoys it and looks forward to it. Yeah, everyone tries their best to be able to make it.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of professional friendships that were the results of offsites. And I think we can also ask Jade. I think, Jade, you missed one offsite because you had a pre-booked holiday you could not avoid. Maybe you can share directly how you felt. Did you feel like it was a epic win that you were not at the offsite, or you felt more like, oh, I wish I was there? Or maybe if you guys could move the dates.
Severe FOMO. I was also in the Telegram group, so I got lots of updates, which was nice, but also, yeah, not enjoyable at the same time. I was actually in Greece, so I can't complain too much, but there's lots of stories from that offsite, which people won't actually tell me what happened, but it always comes up. There's a little bit of a story. So yeah, I was not happy to be missing out on that one. But thankfully I've been able to go to all the other ones since. So yeah.
Moral of the story is don't plan your holidays too far in advance, Jade.
No, we should be the ones being able to plan our offsites a lot in advance so that there's no issue there. But we wanted to get together and we didn't have much time to do so. So we had to push through.
Absolutely. Are there any more questions from the audience? Looking in the chat. Alrighty. Well, thank you very much, Mike and Jade, for joining us today. I really enjoyed that. And thanks to everyone who tuned in. Much appreciated. We'll see you next week for another panel.
Yeah, thanks, Callum, for having us. And for anyone listening, I would just invite you to want to get paid every second if you have the chance to, because it's just a better deal overall. So yeah, thanks for taking the time to listen to us till the very end. And thanks, Calyptus, for inviting us on stage today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
Brilliant. Thank you.